Hey guys, it is the beginning of week 2 with remote learning. I know that I am very tired of being in my house, and I'm sure you all feel the same. But we are going to continue because that is what we have to do. We move on. And so I welcome you back to school. I welcome you back to poetry and what we're doing with that. So without further ado, we are going to move into this week. And we're going to be working on a few poems this week. We have Shakespeare on the docket. We have Walt Whitman that we're going to be reading about, and all of this with the understanding that we are analyzing and discussing poetry. Poetry, again, I just want to remind you, is not easy. And many of you guys are going to decide that you just hate it because of that. Instead of being one of those people, I encourage you to be the one that engages themselves in working and trying and trying to grapple with the language. So today we're going to be working with Shakespeare. And with Shakespeare, he wrote a famous poem within one of his plays. One of his plays we've all read, Julius Caesar, we've read Merchant of Venice, and so on and so forth. And so this one comes from his play As You Like It, and it is a poem called The 7 Ages of Man. And so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to read it together. On this assignment, I've put different people reading it as well. And so you can see the poem here as you have done in the past. I'm going to read through it with us. I'm going to read through it again and annotate a little bit. I'm not going to annotate it in its entirety, but I am going to annotate a little bit of it. And so I'll read through it once, and then I will go back and discuss a little bit of it as well. I'll try to keep it straight for those of you like me that are a little bit OCD about that. And so you can follow along on your sheet or just look at what is on the screen in front of you. But I'm going to turn my head and read here to the right. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved a world too wide for his shrunk shank. And his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all, that ends this strange and eventful history, is second childness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. And so in this poem you have, as Shakespeare argues here, these different stages that encompass the life of a human, right? So the life of all of us as we age. And he has argued that there are 7 different ages within our lives. And so it is at this point that we realize that we are supposed to look for 7 different moments within each of these. And so the first one we have here is the infant age. The whining schoolboy is number 2. We then have the lover as number 3. After that, we have the soldier, and he goes on for a while, and then the justice is number 5. After that, we have the 6th stage, which is the lean and slippered pantaloon. And then last but not least, we have the last scene, which is the second childishness. So 7 of these, and you can write those down as you go, or you can keep those in mind. And so this first part of the poem that we have here sorry, I'll let that focus here. This line and this line right here, so lines 1 and 2, are probably the most famous lines of the poem. For those of you that just read The Merchant of Venice, and for those of you that read it last year, this line is in the beginning of The Merchant of Venice. Antonio says that with I'm just an actor on the stage and mine's a sad one. And so he references back to this specific poem that he wrote in another play. And so here we have in the next line their exits and entrances. This is in reference to probably their death and their birth. It is interesting that he does those backwards, but death and birth is what he's talking about here. And then he begins into those 7 ages. And so we have the first one where you are mewling and puking. For those of you that don't know, mewling simply means like whining, but like without the ability to communicate. This is where meowing comes in, like that same idea. So it's like a sadness that there, and we are in the nurse's arms. So this indicates that very moment that we're born into the world. We also, I think, can establish that this is kind of like not a fun moment in our lives. It's kind of gross. It is the idea of being young and not being a part of who we are, right? Someone else has to take care of us. The second part is maybe where we are now as students, the schoolboy age, where you're in school. And it is important to note that this was written in most likely the 1500s, late 1500s, and we still have the same idea. I think some of us maybe are not doing this, kind of wishing we were unwillingly going to school, but the same as today, right? This idea that even in the 1500s, the folks didn't want to go to school and thought it was pointless. But this is where we have the schoolboy. He is also whining. He is the morning face. This indicates here that he is youthful, right? Morning face. This isn't like the beginning of the day. Even though it's talking about the beginning of the day, this implies this is the beginning of his life as well. So creeping like a snail. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when you're little, in kindergarten, first grade, life goes slow. I don't know if you remember those long summer days where you're at home and the day just feels like it's forever and you have so much time on your hands. Everything is moving a little bit slower. As you get into high school, that changes. And so we have this slowness of life. Creeping like, we have like here. We have like here as well. And then we have another one down here. We have lots of similes happening within this poem. And so something to keep in mind as you go, 3 similes right in the first lines here. That third stage we have is the lover. He's sighing like a furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrows. This right here, Shakespeare seems to be making fun of the lovesick poet. It's funny because so many of his sonnets do this. He's making fun of this time period of seemingly stupidity. And the reason I say that is because this person loves it and he's making it to her eyebrows, right? Like, why is he singing this poem to her eyebrows? Because he's stupid. That's what Shakespeare's trying to say. And so this right here is even though it's missed on us a little bit, his mistress's eyebrow, why isn't he looking into her eyes? Why is he establishing that? So the next one we have here is the soldier, and the soldier is full of oaths, and he not just oaths, strange oaths. They're bearded like the pard, which is a leopard, for those of you that are seeing at the bottom here. So I would circle this and write leopard right now. Again, you don't have to since I'm doing this for you, but it is just to help you better understand it. Jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel. We have a little bit of alliteration here. Alliteration with the Q and the Q next to each other. And then seeking the bubble reputation, even the cannon's moth. He's saying that the soldiers die here for foolish reputation. So bubble reputation, Bubble implies that it can pop. And so he's seeking this reputation, even though, like, what does it really mean? What is the purpose of life here? At this point, our narrator or a person in our life is probably in their mid-20s, 30s, heading into that like prime of life where their job is in front of them. And he's saying that the soldier is foolish. And I argue that because of the bubble. And then seeking this cannon's mouth. Who does that? Who wants a bubble reputation that can pop in the mouth of a cannon? That doesn't seem very smart. It also establishes that why are soldiers there, right? And so we have soldiers to fight wars. And he is arguing that as you go through life, you realize the stupidity of war and why do we even fight? I'm going to move this a little bit down so that you can see the bottom of the poem here. And so the next part, and then the next part is the justice. The justice is our next sentence here, our next fifth phase. In fair round belly. So we have the gaining of years in the round belly, and then the capen lined. Capen means a fattened chicken, and so this is like we want good food to line our bellies, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut. We have a person here that has grown in age. They are expecting the best out of life. I am tired of eating the worst foods. I am going to eat good food now. Full of wise saws or old sayings, modern instances, and so he plays his part. Here we're in middle age. We are middle-aged. We are known to be a certain thing, and we know life to be, there we go, a little bit jaded. These people are. They're not going to take a lot of time to hang out with the soldier and the lover. They're going to roll their eyes. They're going to be that person. And the sixth age then shifts to the slippered pantaloon. This is the person that establishes themselves as a little bit older, probably grandparents at this time. They're rolling up their pants, slippers on. They are not going to establish themselves as anything but an old man. They are the old men, and they are going to wear what they want to. They're going to have their spectacles on their nose. These are like the on your nose, not just like the regular ones. This is the reading glasses age, if you will. Reading glasses on your nose, youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide. We have a lot of alliteration here. Well, world wide, for shrunk, sank. So we have these three that go together, and then these two in the next line. And all of these establish this, like, most likely a patterned life is what I would say. I don't know if you guys visit your grandparents much, and this is definitely stereotypical of grandparents, but there's definitely like, I get up at this time, and this is what I eat every meal of every day. And your grandparents may be a little bit different than mine, but my grandmother and grandpa, they had the same thing every breakfast, and then that is what they did. And so it is very structured, his big manly voice turning again then toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. And so we have this then moving back down into childishness. And this is where it heads, right? We're not quite there yet, but eventually we head back to that childishness. And so he says that ends his strange, eventful history. Strange implies that it is curious, that we are unsure of what's to come. And all of that stuff is strange, right? It is not necessarily where we would expect to be. We go through this life and then we end up a child again. And so it seems interesting that he uses strange. He used it before in the, I think it was the soldier one, where he says that the soldier full of strange oaths, if you go back up to the top. And so we have this repetition. Let me go back up here and make this connection from strange to strange again. And so we have this word that establishes that we, again, move backwards. We go from the child to the strange and then move to childishness. So we're moving back through the phases backwards. And so then at the end of this, you have sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. And so sans everything means that we have died. And then sans means without, which implies that it is going to happen. It is matter of fact. We have this without. We are without teeth. We are without eyes. And so the end of this poem and the tone therein is not necessarily sad. It is a list. This is listy, if you will. And so it is establishing that it is matter of fact. Lists are like, hey, Mom, I need this, 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 and this from the store. This is just going to happen. The list that he establishes here is what we are without at the end. And so this is what happens, period. There's definitely a period at the end of this, that we are going to go through this all. And this is, in fact, the force of life. This is the trajectory of life as we know it. And so this is, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now as I went through this with you. Again, the purpose of this is for me to help you guys to go through these poems, to better understand them, and for me to at least have some say in what you understand and what is going on here. The idea and hope for today is that you are going to work through and answer some of these questions. The questions that I have for you are on the same document with this. As I said, I have added some other people saying this poem, so you're not just listening to me. I think one of the videos that I have is Benedict Cumberbatch, and then another famous actor reading these lines within the play As You Like It. So go through those, answer the questions posed for you. I'm not looking for you to turn this in since I did it with you, but as we move forward, the expectation that I'm going to have for an assessment for you is I'm going to be giving you a poem next week, and you are going to then have to analyze and annotate that for yourself. And you will then be graded with that. So you'll have to find the literary terms, and this is going to be our at-home quiz for this unit. So keep that in mind as I'm going through this. The purpose of it is for you to eventually be able to do it on your own, and for you to go through these poems and start feeling comfortable with them. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about another poem that establishes life in being young and what it means to be young. We're then going to head into Walt Whitman this week, and then a little bit of a project heading into the weekend. So please let me know if you have questions. I'm going to be on during your class period on Zoom, and so you can log in there if you need anything or have questions. And otherwise, we'll talk to you guys later.